Hello, I'm Sabrina Simone, reporting from the Daily Security Briefing Security Information Center. Welcome to Week 4, January 2007 of the DSB Week in Review. This week brings us vulnerabilities in technologies from Cisco, Microsoft, Bind, Sun, Citrix, Check Point, SAP, ArcServe, and PHP. Leading our news, Cisco iOS contains multiple severe vulnerabilities that manipulate IP, ICMP, and TCP protocols to denial of service a device. Cisco has released patches, and US CERT is strongly encouraging immediate patch application. Microsoft Word contains a vulnerability that allows arbitrary code execution. The vendor does not have patches for this issue yet, and strong caution is advised. Multiple versions of Bind 9 are susceptible to a high-severity vulnerability that can cause a denial of service condition. Patches are available and recommended. And now for some quick hit points. Sun Java contains multiple high-severity vulnerabilities that allow arbitrary code execution. Citrix contains a high-severity vulnerability that allows execution of arbitrary code. Check Point Connectra contains a high-severity security bypass vulnerability. SAP has a high-severity vulnerability that allows execution of arbitrary code. ArcServe is susceptible to a high-severity denial of service vulnerability. Finally, PHP contains a medium-severity vulnerability that allows security bypass conditions. This week's activity maintains our threat index of the week at high. And now an editorial from IGX Global's CTO, Babak Pazdar.
Thanks, Sabrina. I received a call last week where the caller invited me to a seminar on, and these are his words, the most prolific operating system of this millennium, Windows Vista. I thought to myself, for that to be the case, Vista has to address some of the challenges with the current version of Windows. These challenges include reliability and availability issues, performance, complexity in both the system and network architecture, interdependencies on services that often cannot coexist on a single system, inability to self-sustain without a prodigious amount of third-party tools, out-of-the-box manageability, and last but not least, security. If the number of lines of code is any indication, at 50 million, Vista contains 10 million more lines than Windows XP. Bloatware alarmists sometimes correlate the volume of code to security risk. But in comparing Vista with Apple's OS X that has 86 million, or a full-bore Linux system at over 100 million lines of code, Vista is a lightweight. Though the number of Windows systems outweigh all other OS players combined, Unix, Linux, and even Apple are open source, making it far easier to identify vulnerabilities. Interestingly enough, Apple, Unix, and Linux have exponentially less vulnerabilities and offer better performance compared to Windows. Other changes in Vista include incorporation of the least privileged user method for rights handling, a most welcomed feature. They also have controversially tightened access to their kernel. Though citing security reasons, which is very viable, this has impacted anti-malware vendors the hardest. Coincidentally, this also happens to be a line of business Microsoft has recently engaged. The jury is out on Vista. I'm hoping that Microsoft has built a robust, dependable, and zippy environment with the tools to self-sustain and reasonable security. But even Microsoft cannot buck the trend toward lighter, even thin clients and centralized computing. Find out more about this issue in my blog, The Strategic Impact of Windows Vista. You can find it under the blog section of the dailysecuritybriefing.com site.
Thank you, Babak. And now for this week's anonymous poll. Does your organization see a compelling feature in Vista that would drive a migration? Make your vote count on the dailysecuritybriefing.com website. In response to last week's poll, could your organization benefit from a SIM or SEM solution? 60% said yes, 20% no, and 20% needed more information. That's it for this week's DSB Week in Review. I'm Sabrina Simone, and remember that when it comes to software, bigger does not mean better or worse.